I'm going to quickly introduce our guests to you. We have Anand Vardhan in the studio with us, Jayashree joining us from Chennai, and our guest for this week is Johny, who's also joining us from Chennai.
Ehud Olmert's political career was finished after the 2006 Lebanon war. So here, Netanyahu has built a career over his promises for Israel's security. And now you see that security model collapsing. So now everybody is talking about Israel's retribution, pounding Gaza, leveling buildings, cutting off electricity, laying the enclave to siege, etc., etc. But once the dust settles, there will be serious questions about the failures and the options and objectives ahead of you.
During the 1857 War of Independence, the British and European media had run stories at the time on how mutineers who were participating in the revolt were brutalizing citizens. So Karl Marx had written about it at the time, and he said, yes, there was brutality, but what the press does is it sort of skips that decades of atrocities that was inflicted by the East India Company. And this is exactly what we're seeing here.
Like in 1962, Prime Minister Nehru wrote to his counterpart, Ben Gurion, I think, that asking for military supplies, and in 62 war against China. Nehru was of the view that the ships carrying the military supplies should not have Israeli flag. So Ben Gurion said no flag, no weapons. So India finally relented.
The two-state solution effectively is dead. I saw some people saying that the two-state solution died after the Hamas attack. The two-state solution stopped being there for it's been a long time. It doesn't exist. So maybe in the future, I think some Palestinians are already, even Israeli intellectuals are already talking about a one-state solution. In a sense, a federal state where Jews, Christians, and Palestinians and Arabs, they all would coexist under a secular constitution with a federal structure.
Also, you need to look at significant death counts, right? Who has killed more babies? It is the IDF. Who has killed more women? It is the IDF. Who has killed more civilians? It is the IDF. Who has bombed more hospitals? It is the IDF. So we're still whittling on about this unproven sort of allegation that Hamas beheaded 40 babies because it entirely distracts from a much larger story that is in the background.
Welcome to Chhota Hafta. Now, Chhota Hafta is but a small, Chhota version of a complete weekly podcast, Newslaundry Hafta. The Newslaundry Hafta is where you get the week's news, what made the headlines, what didn't make the headlines, but the full version is available to subscribers only. And I don't mean YouTube subscribers, although YouTube subscribers are also very welcome, very, very grateful to you, but also to Newslaundry subscribers, the paying subscribers who pay to keep news free. So you can also become a paying subscriber by clicking the subscription link. Now, what do you get if you're a paying subscriber? You get access to all our paywall content, all interviews, podcasts, and importantly, you get access to a full unedited Hafta, where you not only get to hear the week's news, but you get to hear the Newslaundry editors' positions on matters. You get to see their biases, what are their prejudices. It's an exercise in transparency while also informing you, and we have a few quips and jokes and agreements and disagreements thrown in. So listen to the full Hafta, subscribe to Newslaundry, and pay to keep news free. Here we go.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और Newslaundry अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. I'm going to be your host this week because Abhinandan is out of town. We've had a very intense news week, and I think after a long time, we've had an event outside of India make headlines, make prominent front page headlines. Israel-Palestine conflict is all over the news. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. In fact, the podcast will be solely focused on this. We have a new election fund up. Election season is back. Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Rajasthan and Mizoram are going to polls in less than a month. Newslaundry and the News Minute are going to come together and report on these elections. We're going to have reporters from our organizations. Editors also travel to these places. We will bring you shows and interviews. This is going to be a collective thing that we're going to do together because we're stronger together. So you can check out our election fund at newslaundry.com/election fund to contribute to our election reporting, our combined election reporting. Hamas would have known that with this action, they are going to invite an action from Israel like never before. This whole thing of wipe out Gaza, I mean, this is something that they would have expected. And so the question comes at what was the thinking behind this and why now?
Hamas has achieved two things, irrespective of the Israeli response. One, Hamas has broken the status quo, whether it is good or for bad. The status quo was unsustainable for the Palestinians because since the 1990s, mid-1990s, ever since the Oslo process collapsed, what the Israelis have been trying to do was to keep the Palestinians under check. I mean, in a sense, continue the occupation without consequences. So you have the security barrier, you have the checkpoints, you have the direct military occupation, you have the collective punishment, you have the Palestinian Authority under your control. And Israel has over the years built a very tight security model. No, like as you mentioned, Israel has Mossad, which is a very powerful intelligence agency. Israel is a nuclear power; it's an undeclared nuclear power. It's a very powerful military force. But Hamas is telling that no, you have issues with your security model. We can drill holes into the security model. So basically, they have, I think, broken out of the status quo. And then secondly,
let's zoom back a little to India. Do you think it's going to be tricky for India going ahead, like in issuing a statement? Because see, we have friends in the Middle East. We have decent relations with Iran. Russia, that doesn't recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization, we're friends with them. Of course, we've been very close to Israel, especially under the prime ministership of Narendra Modi. But traditionally, we've not wanted to really, pick sides here. So going ahead, if this escalates, do you see like
India's problem for decades in this, and India has tried to find a way out of it, is dehyphenating its relations with Israel with its relations with other Arab nations. Now, this dehyphenation has been a diplomatic challenge for India for a number of years, and it will be in a larger way now. Also, how it will branch off, because we are seeing the bipolarity on Ukraine also branching off in this issue. And India would have to just have a role reversal, because
everything that's happened over the past 5 days, media has also become an important aspect of this war. What do you think of how this has been reported in the international press especially?
I think what we're seeing from Western, especially Western liberal outfits, is Western propaganda. I'll give you 3 examples of this. I mean, so in 2018, a journalist called Mark Hill said at an event at the United Nations, he said, we have an opportunity to not just offer solidarity in words, but to commit to political action to give us what justice requires. And what that justice requires is a free Palestine from the river to the sea. This is what he said at an event organized by the UN. CNN fired him. Then in 2021, a Jewish journalist called Emily Wilder, she was 22 years old. She joined a news organization for her first job. Right-wing trolls on the internet found screenshots from her past in college where she had participated in pro-Palestine events.
Yeah, and she got fired.
Associated Press fired her. I think they are participants in the entire charade that is playing out now. Over the decades, any kind of Western atrocity is often cheered on by certain sections of the Western media. And it's as much an indictment of Western media as it is of Western liberalism as a concept. And we see this at every stage. Look at the Iraq war and we look at this. That every time the West has committed an atrocity that is very far from its shores, the liberal media sort of joins together to regurgitate propaganda. It's like the supporters of a football team.
Hamas on the other side is the outfit that won the only elections, free and fair elections, that took place in the Palestinian territories in 2006. Hamas won the elections. And Hamas government was dissolved by Abu Mazen in the West Bank because the Europeans said that they would not continue their financial aid to the Palestinian Authority run by Hamas, which was popularly elected. So here the question is, has Hamas used terror as a means? They have. They have carried out suicide attacks in the late 1980s and in the late 1980s throughout the 1990s. And the whole question, I think, is very complicated because you can't take the Palestine question out of the violence that is being committed within the Palestinian territories. The violence that is being committed by Hamas, the violence that is being committed by the IDF.
Come to Anand with, we want a history lesson on India's relations with Palestine and how we've historically viewed this conflict.
India didn't recognize Israel immediately when it was formed in 1948, and India took 2 years to recognize Israel. That was in 1950. It recognized, and on record there are conversations that Vijayalakshmi Pandit, who was India's ambassador to the US, she told her Israeli counterpart that Kashmir question is an important consideration behind India delaying the recognition, because it may push Arab nations to rally behind Pakistan on the Kashmir question in UN. And it was not just a thought of the ambassador. In 1950, when India finally recognized Israel as a sovereign state, Prime Minister Nehru also said that we delayed it because it may hurt the sentiments of Arab nations.
There is a central question that when there is an act as gruesome as what we saw, when you have civilians dead, it is rude to bring up, the root causes argument. Like if people have died, let's not talk about the root causes. That's for later. Right now, condemn and say this is bad, unequivocal, and don't get into the root causes.
The answer to the Palestine question is also Hamas. It is why it exists. It's why it's doing what it does. No one is standing with the murder of civilians. No one is standing with this sort of violence. But I think you cannot see this attack in isolation from the rest. It didn't just happen because someone woke up one day and decided to act. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that, you shouldn't voice your opinion on this. It's really complicated. It's so nuanced. Guys, we'll study for years. We'll never understand. No, I think it was Noam Chomsky or whoever who said that when people say it's a very complicated issue, but it's actually very simple if you choose to understand it. I mean, if you choose to explain it to yourself in your head, then you get it.
No, I think that in this situation, you can't understand what's happening, the violence, without understanding root causes. I do think, and I think necessarily bringing it up is not... it's not justifying anything. I think both things can hold true, that Hamas's attack was unprecedented, brutal, shameful, along with saying that you have to explore what is happening to the Palestinian question of statehood. Both statements can be said together. I don't think it's an either or thing. But yes, I tend to agree with Anand on the Prime Minister's tweet that even when he first tweeted that, I thought it was really as banal a tweet as, say, an earthquake happens and you say, my condolences.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a position. It is simply that, boss, so many people have died. We are with you at this hour of pain, and that's about it.
Bas, muft mein itna hi milega. For the full uncut podcast, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free. The best way to listen to the Hafta and indeed all our podcasts is through the Newslaundry app. You can download the app by clicking on the links given in the show notes. So do download our app and get the best podcast experience. And also pay for news and support a new news media ecosystem that Newslaundry is trying to encourage, where we are accountable to you because we run on contributions that you make. We don't take government ads, we don't take corporations ads, so that news serves the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Subscribe to Newslaundry, click on the link in the show notes below and proudly say, I pay to keep news free.